It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Friday, October 24th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Coming up after news and comment, we're going to talk with the former chief of police, Denver Police. Paul Pazen is going to join us. New report coming out from the Common Sense Institute, how reduced incarceration has coincided with rising crime. Bottom line, letting people out of jail. And violent crime is going up. Shocking. But it's going to be a great insight you're not going to want to miss. Bill, you wanted to wrap up with Frank.
Yeah, I want to continue the conversation. Now, just to set the table for people that didn't hear, and I'll do this very quickly. One of the things that Frank, Jeff, and I were talking about is the idea of women having abortions, and Jeff bringing up the idea that young men focused on having families, while young women, more liberal women, focused on their careers. And Frank agrees, and the question I asked Frank is, are we surprised that women are focusing on their careers, considering that in order to raise that child, they need to be able to provide for it? If we want to have someone to stay home and have many babies, doesn't that woman need to be successful enough in order to afford that many babies? What do you think about that, Frank?
Well, I think, that's one facet of it, but there's many facets. There's the family, there's, can't even get into the complexities of a man and woman relationship, a marriage. I mean, all the intricacies of that. But there's a couple. Another thing is, single women, when they get pregnant, we need to take care of them. And but it gets back to our political, both ends of the political spectrum. One side says, "Oh, we have to be capitalists." The other side says, "Oh, we can't. We have to be socialist, communist, and take care and tax Frank to pay for everybody else." And neither one of those extremes work. We've got to find the middle ground and focus on, what the real problem is. And we need to take care of babies. Period. And the two sides just don't seem to be able to come together. At least in the short term. Maybe over time they will. But it's just been one of these. Continuous arguments back and forth. And it turns out that, at the end of the argument, at the end of the half-hour argument, what happens is one side accuses the other side of being evil, and the other side accuses the other side of being evil. None of them are evil. We need to take care of babies. It's that simple.
Frank, thank you, man. I appreciate
the call.
Nicely
Frank
done.
Evergreen.
Good job.
His phone line will be open if you want to join the conversation, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Billy and I sitting up real straight here because the former chief of police joining us to talk a new report out of the Common Sense Institute. Now it's time, though, for news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning, TGIF. 48 and mostly cloudy, expecting a high of 63 today. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, a teacher is recovering after being stabbed outside a school in Thornton. Max Flores, a sixth grade student at Meadow Community School, says the teacher who was stabbed is well liked.
He's a fun teacher. He knows how to draw really good. It was just quiet and everyone's shocked. Their faces were in shock.
The teacher was stabbed outside the school around 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon. He was taken to a hospital with non-threatening injuries. Police arrested 31-year-old Damian Brooks following the stabbing. Brooks is already facing charges, including first-degree murder. Investigators believe the attack was unprovoked and noted that there is no apparent connection between the teacher and the suspect. Inflation is up slightly less than expected. The annual inflation rate hit 3% in September, according to numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics out this morning. Social Security benefits will go up in January. The Social Security Administration announced Both Social Security and Supplemental Security income will receive a cost of living adjustment of 2.8%. That means Social Security retirement benefits will go up by an average of around $56 per month.
And when this came down the pike, that's what I was told. He's coming. It was an abuse of power in his eyes, Stephen. And he's remembering everybody.
Okay, Stephen A. The mythster says that DJT's coming after sports. Well, if you break the law and it's serious, isn't that a good thing, Stephen A? I don't understand. His source says he's coming after everybody. Denver's King of the Hill, Park Hill, Chauncey Billups, GW High School, CU, Nuggets, also a world champion with the Pistons, head coach of the Blazers, arrested by the FBI for teaming up with the Mafia to try to rip off guys who wanted to play poker with Mr. Big Shot in Vegas. But Chauncey, we'll see. He may not know that the Mafia was involved. Let's go back to Mr. Drama Man. Here we go, the myth, Stephen A.
I find it disgusting. I find it heinous. I find it inexcusable and beneath the office of the presidency and our politics and everything in between. And I'm fully aware that this was being negotiated, or I'm not negotiated, but investigated over the last couple of years. I got that. But it happening now and the manner in which it's going down to the point where the FBI director is in attendance, that's pomp and circumstance, ladies and gentlemen. That's flexing. That's sending a message that this is just the tip of the iceberg. That's telling you they got more coming down the pike and that they have no intention of stopping.
Okay.
Who is they? Who is they in that?
He's saying the administration, DJT and the administration. So like life is going to end, Jeff, because they're going to go after bad guys.
And the WNBA, right?
Right, and the WNBA. And accountability and crimes are exposed. So, this is going to ruin every day. It's gonna be great. I mean, what they gonna do? So he has a source within the administration, and life as we know it will never continue the way we see it right now. He's gonna finish here, I think. Go ahead.
That is what's going on.
God, these dramatic pauses. That is what's going on. People are going to be held accountable.
I've heard that for 4 hours today, and I can't tell you what he is talking about.
No, exactly. Perfect. You just hit it on the head right there. And that is Stephen A. Myth right there. All right, the Nuggets. That's funny. The Nuggets tipped off the new season last night, trying not to get involved in the gambling issue, taking on Golden State last night.
Gordon, he's been hot all night. Got another one. 10 3-pointer for Gordon. Denver takes the lead.
But the Warriors beat the Nuggets 137-131 in overtime. Aaron Gordon scored 50, 10 threes, and 8 rebounds in the loss. All right, DJT and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth disseminated another narco-terrorist boat in the Caribbean overnight affiliated with Tren de Aragua, our friends from Tren de Aragua. 47 leaving D.C. today for a multi-day trip to Asia, which includes a high-stakes meeting in South Korea with Chinese President Xi. It's day 24 of the Schumer shutdown. Democrats are calling the Republicans to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies before they expire at the end of the year. Republicans say they won't negotiate until the shutdown has ended. Researchers are warning about pain and medical issues coming from excessive smartphone use.
What's called tech neck is a strain when someone holds their head forward for long periods of time to look at their phone. There's new findings in the International Journal of Environmental Sciences that say spinal and other problems are associated with heavy smartphone use. In an article published this month in the European Spine Journal, researchers at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago wrote if something isn't done, people will develop early onset spinal degeneration and other issues that could last a lifetime. I'm Monica Nelson.
Tech neck. That is hilarious.
Is that great?
Neck.
I'd rather be a tech neck than a redneck.
I want to do this sometime. I want to go through all the stuff I was like scared into believing as a human being living between 1980 and 2025 at this point. You know, like the idea that if I used my hairspray, that there was going to be a hole in the ozone.
Yes.
That there was acid rain, that just rain was going to fall and then I would like melt away from it. That if I used my cell phone, the gas station would explode. You know, like now it's tech neck.
Yes. And I'm so old that I remember all the magazine covers that the ice would cover the earth.
Yes.
And we would freeze. And
but
then,
this is just right for a Saturday Night Live skit. Do you have tech neck?
Absolutely. You know, I used to think, I did notice though, you know, right when the cell phones started getting big in the right when we turned, I don't know, late 90s or whatever. But you notice people looking down. And you know that statue, the thinker?
Yeah.
You know that I always thought it'd be a great statue of just a person looking down at their phone for this era and this modern day age, because you used to go to the mall and see people walking around, looking at people
now they
watching.
Just look down.
Now they're just looking down. Everybody's just looking down.
Hey,
so,
Kelly, I'm going to take the day off. I got tech neck.
It's in the manual or whatever, the employee handbook.
If you're a redneck, does that mean you're especially susceptible to tech neck?
Yeah,
thank you,
man,
Jacqueline.
That's the next country hit song. I'd rather be a tech neck than a redneck. Hey, World Series begins tonight. Dodgers at the Blue Jays. The Border War tomorrow, CSU with their interim head coach. They take on the Cowboys in Laramie, and that is a great rivalry. CU at Utah, UC Davis at UNC, and the Broncos 5-2. They play host to the 3-3 Cowboys on Sunday. Quarterback Bo Nix says the Broncos need to come out strong in those beautiful 80s throwback unis.
That's what we're looking forward to doing. I think everybody on offense has kind of that edge to them, to where we're kind of tired of being close. So I think everybody's working towards making those first few possessions count.
Chargers beat the Vikings last night, 47 in Highlands Ranch, 46 in Aurora, 48 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. I'd rather be a redneck than a tech neck. Blake Olson, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
Clouds will be on the increase today as we have a small low-pressure system that's coming off the west coast. It'll move right across Colorado. It won't do much, but it will bring clouds and a few showers possible to the area today through early tonight. Highs mid to upper 60s, lows tonight in the 40s. Might have a few lingering showers Friday morning, then partly cloudy by afternoon, mild, low to mid 60s. Pleasant, mostly sunny, highs upper 60s to near 70 Saturday, increasing clouds Sunday. Trending colder, maybe some showers Sunday night into early Monday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Our friends over at the Common Sense Institute have put together a great report, How Reduced Incarceration Has Coincided with Rising Crime. Over the past 2 decades, Colorado has pursued a steady course of criminal justice reform aimed at reducing the footprint in the state's correctional system. Lawmakers have prioritized leniency. They write, lower sentences for drug offenses, expanded parole and probation opportunities, and restrictions on law enforcement discretion. Actually put together a whole list. This is really important because this is the first time a big list has been put together like this that looks at all the laws that have been passed regarding criminal justice reform. The measures were intended to correct excesses of the past and emphasize rehabilitation over retribution. While it's a noble goal in keeping with Colorado's dedication towards justice in all respects, how has it actually played out? Well, to give us some insights, the author of this report is a former chief of police of the city of Denver, and now with the Common Sense Institute, Chief Paul Pazen. Good morning, Chief. Thank you for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Bill. Thanks for having me.
What did you guys find out in this report?
Well, I hope you're sitting down and you're not going to be too shocked by this. I love being a public safety fellow for the Common Sense Institute, but I think a lot of the listeners would have already figured this out. When you fail to hold individuals accountable for their actions committing crime, then crime increases, and it's a near one-to-one coefficient rate where when we push people out of prison without the supports, without the training necessary, it actually is harmful to the people in our community. It's harmful to the community members, but it's also the previous offender. That if we want to be successful, we want to make sure that the person doesn't reoffend and society is not hurt as a result.
The wildest statistic in my mind, or the graphic that you all have here, is the total inmate jurisdictional population versus violent crime rates. So you can see that the total jurisdictional inmate population, those are the folks in prison, hovers around 20%, going back to 2015. Hovers along. And then in March of 2020, it goes way down, drops down to about 15,000. In July, has gone up to 17,000 as of December 2024. But at the same time, violent crime goes up, and then really goes up right at that junction, right there where the inmate population goes down. And as you said, it's a 1-to-1 ratio where we're letting those guys out and the violent crime is going right up. Your thoughts, sir?
You're exactly right. Figure 8 of the report that you just described just jumps off the page. It shows that many of these reform efforts, that it's taken a disproportional view of the criminal justice system. It's balancing the rights of the individuals who were involved in the criminal behavior in the first place and not taking into account the victims and community at large. So really, Colorado has caused lots of harm to our society. Originally, it was intended to save money in incarceration. Typically, it's about $56,000 to incarcerate a person a year. The budget is typically around $900 million for DOC. But if you look at the cost to society, the harms to society with the increased crime rates, it's about $27 billion. So exponentially more expensive. And truly, these are victims, these are families, these are people that are being hurt when we don't do it the right way.
That's Paul Pazen, former chief of police for the city of Denver, now a fellow with the Common Sense Institute, talking about a new report that they have out. Chief, I've been a part of these discussions, debates for many years. What progressives will often say, or folks that want to implement criminal justice reform, is that people come from bad situations. And this kind of school to prison pipeline that we've put particularly inner city kids into doesn't give them any hope. That this is a system that we've actually created ourselves by, they come from broken families. They live in gang communities. What hope could there ever be for them? So why just lock them away? Shouldn't we come up with systems that could hopefully treat them to prevent them from having to spend a lifetime in prison? What's your response to those types of arguments?
Well, Jeff, I've heard the same thing. And, really, I grew up to a single mom in North Denver, and statistically, you would see me on a different side of the criminal justice system. I mean, those explanations are really that we're not in control of our own destiny, that we can't make choices for ourselves, and I reject that notion that just because somebody's born in a certain situation that they can't escape that. We are the land of opportunity, and you can do anything in this country in order to be successful, not only for yourself, but your family. And, the criminal justice system itself is not targeting specific individuals to put them in the school to prison pipeline. What I would suggest is that there are plenty of programs out there that we can reduce the negative impact of people returning back to our community from prison if we utilize the programs that actually work. I've seen them in action. The Denver Dream Center does a phenomenal job of helping people turn their lives around. It's a faith-based organization that really makes a difference. There's plenty others out there. But instead of just changing the definition of what recidivism is, which is one of the bills that passed in the state legislature, or reducing reducing the likelihood that somebody that is involved in future criminal behavior goes back, is just the data is showing that their reform efforts are not having the desired impact on safety for our community.
That's the former chief of police of the city of Denver, Paul Pazen, joining us. He's now a fellow with the Common Sense Institute on their latest report. Let's talk about that, because figure one, recidivism rates. You guys go back and look at some of the earliest measured recidivism rates for each of the state. And so recidivism was, from my understanding, the definition was rearrests that took place after you'd been released from prison. So what's the rate that you're going to likely end up back being arrested, put into prison again? And then the earliest assessment for Colorado was 52%. Last year was 31%. And so you're looking at a 40% rate change. And I think those that are kind of pro-criminal justice reform saying, hey, look, what we're doing means that the recidivism rate's going down. But as you guys point out in this report, the definition has changed. Tell us about that.
Yes. So what one of the bills did in 2019 was it changed the definition of what recidivism is. And so historically, across the country, actually across the globe, it was exactly the definition that you described. If somebody was released from prison and rearrested in 3 years, then that counted as a failure of the system and would count for that recidivism rate. So what the state did is it changed it, right, wrong, or indifferent. It changed the definition to convicted within 3 years. Well, the criminal justice system definitely does not work fast. So if somebody is rearrested in that 3-year window, particularly on the back end, it is very unlikely that the court proceedings will take place in that 3-year window. Also of note is there's Senate Bill 271 that passed that redefined a lot of the crimes in Colorado. So crimes that were previously misdemeanors after 271 became, crimes that used to be felonies are now misdemeanors. A lot of misdemeanor crimes that were previously defined have now become petty offenses. So individuals who are rearrested and reconvicted for many of those crimes that have been reclassified now do not count against that recidivism rate itself. Also of note, some of the violations, they've actually tied the hands of parole officers as well. So individuals who are not complying with terms of their parole, they made it where if you escape from a halfway house, that used to be a felony that would get you rearrested, and now they don't do that anymore. So it's really watering down of many of the laws in Colorado in an effort to reduce the footprint in order to save some budget on the prisons. But again, that $27 billion cost to society is something that is measured not only in money, but also in lives, families, and public safety.
That's Chief Paul Pazen, former chief of the police for the city of Denver, now with the Common Sense Institute on a new report here. Chief, I want to explore these issues because, look, last week, for instance, I hosted a number of progressive co-hosts that are work in the city of Denver. And one of the regular debates that happened on this program was the issue of crime in the city of Denver. And I pointed out that I think it's hard to judge the statistics right now. Trump administration bringing up the fact that the DOJ is now looking into whether or not the statistics have been manipulated in a way that we can really trust them, as you pointed out just in that last point there about how things are being dropped down so that they don't look as menacing as maybe they might actually be. And so I think Coloradans are hearing from Mike Johnston, hearing from the chief that things are getting better in Colorado, but they still have concerns about going downtown, and they don't know if they can really trust those arguments that the rate is dropping and that the city's safer. In the midst of all this debate, what do you say?
Actually, I really appreciate the question. I will point to that same figure that jumps off the page. You see this drop in prison population and immediate increase in crime, skyrocketing crime. But what you also see is as folks start to be held accountable more, and you see an increase in arrests and convictions compared to the drop, you also see now a reduction in crime. So really what this points out is that there is a balance here, that you must hold people accountable for their actions. You can't excuse bad behavior. When you do that, it's a net win for everybody. It's a net win for the individual who is out there committing crime, who once held accountable, is not harming society. So, from my perspective, we have been out of balance in the state of Colorado, right? We, for the most part, decriminalized, or we made it where up to 4 grams of fentanyl, cocaine, methamphetamine, and heroin was a misdemeanor, and we saw dramatic increases in overdose deaths. Then we tightened up the law on the fentanyl, made it 1 gram, and then you see a decrease in overdose poisoning. Same with auto theft. There has to be the right balance, and unfortunately, for far too long, those scales of justice have been tilted towards the offender and not towards public safety. So as we rebalance those efforts, and Coloradans have done this themselves. There was a ballot initiative, 2 ballot initiatives that passed, Proposition 128, Proposition 130, where everyday Coloradans said, hey, I am concerned about crime, and I don't like this overcorrection that has taken place in the state legislature. And things like that are leading to increased public safety. And what the report points out is the state legislature would be wise to take a second look at what they've done and try to figure out some solutions, because overall, the goal of any criminal justice system is really about public safety, keeping communities safe where people can raise their families without fear of crime and being harmed.
That's Chief Paul Pazen, Common Sense Institute, talking to us about a brand new report, how reduced incarceration has led to a rise in violent crime, focusing here on Colorado. Now, Chief, earlier you talked about the idea that we were lowering some charges, curtailing some extensive incarceration, basically being kinder to criminals to understand them, originally done to save money. On the other end, does that mean if we want to see that trend reverse, we need to increase our taxes, fund police more. And one of the things that has always run my head into the wall is when a community that is concerned about crime doesn't want to vote to build a new jail or facility to house the criminals they say they need to put behind bars. Is part of the functionality in order to get to where we need to, not only just a reform inside of how the laws are written and how, the people like the prosecutors are approaching this, but also to give our law enforcement the funding and support they need. Your thoughts?
Bill, yet again, another excellent question. And this was part of the ballot initiative last year where the voters of Colorado said, yes, they want to support more law enforcement, more training, better professionalism within the police department because they want to feel safe. I talked about it a little bit earlier. It's about balance, and there are ways where we can balance all of those needs, do it in an effective way that keeps our community safe. We can reduce costs. Actually, there's a pretty significant study that looks at if you fund upfront with having adequate police staffing, then it reduces crime because people are not committing crime in the presence of police officers. Typically, folks don't speed past a police car. If they see an officer in crime areas, then typically that crime doesn't occur. And it points to an empirical study that shows if you put the money up front, you actually save the money on the back end. And then I also want to point out that we should be enjoying record low numbers of crime these days. If you think about the advances in technology, policing has never been more effective than it is today, not only in that education lies, but also technology. If you look at DNA, rapid DNA, you have the ability to pinpoint where gunshots are occurring. You have flock cameras that can then be used for investigations to track down the vehicles that are stolen or used in other crimes. You have Ring doorbells that are on nearly every other house in different communities. There's cameras all over. So we should be at a point where crime is not a topic of discussion because we utilize the right types of accountability, the right types of laws to hold those individuals to account for their actions. But we also are utilizing technology in better ways that keep our community safe.
That's Chief Paul Pazen, Common Sense Institute fellow. One final question from me. We talked earlier about drug offenders, rise in drug offenders, and also recidivism in that community. What correlation have we seen between those drug offenders and the commission of violent crime?
So this is a hidden aspect within the criminal justice system. And really, some of those drug offenses is what led to much of this overcorrection on the reform side of the criminal justice system itself. Right? There's this perception that it's grandma selling marijuana has led to a 20-year prison population. What I can tell you that in Colorado, that just like in many other places, this is a plea-based system. Approximately 93% of all cases are pled down. So right off the bat, this is almost something that favors offenders when we're talking about those scales of justice. And so when we look at prison populations related to drug offense, typically that individual is actually facing much harsher penalties to include violent crimes or other property crimes, and it's pled down to a drug offense. So what we've seen in the report is that actually those numbers have remained very steady, and that's even with the change in legalization of marijuana recreation use. But it's really more of the system itself and the plea-based system that reflects those numbers.
That's Chief Paul Pazen, former chief of the city of Denver, now with the Common Sense Institute of Colorado. He's got a new report out titled The Reform Paradox, How Reduced Incarceration Has Coincided with Rising Crime. Go to commonsenseinstituteus.org to read the report. It is detailed. It is thorough. It is very impressive. And most importantly, it's impactful. Will hopefully turn things around for Colorado, get us more serious, and make our communities safer. Go to commonsenseinstituteus.org, commonsenseinstituteus.org. Chief, thank you so much for your time.
Yes,
By the way, how many more degrees could you fit on that wall behind you? There's a good 20 of them there already.
I know. I'd have to put warranties behind me in order to get degrees like that. I mean, just the warranty for the fridge and stuff.
Jeff and Bill, it's always a great job. Keep up the great work. Thanks for letting me be a part of the show.
You bet.
Thank you so much, Chief. Have a good weekend.
And thanks for being kind to us. And
yeah, that's cool.
There's many reasons for Bill and I to be incarcerated.
Oh, absolutely. And you know that some of those people are dying to give me a strip search just because, to make it awkward. Now, one of the things I really appreciate about Paul's time with us, and one of the things he talked about, is how looking inside the numbers, even though you saw some lower rates of incarceration and lower rates of recidivism, there are some underlying causes there that isn't necessarily good news. So when you hear some of your more liberal lawmakers going out there and touting those numbers, touting those numbers, understand you got the backside information here, the depth of the knowledge from the chief, to say that that is somewhat of an illusion based on how we've approached our criminal and justice system, and that drop in crime doesn't necessarily mean that we're safer. And that's something you need to take away with you from this conversation.
Bottom line, that's exactly right. Well, let's talk Guy Rees. Wife and I have been talking about updating our home for a while, and we took a big first step. We went to the Guy Rees location in Parker. We had an absolutely fantastic experience. Got to sit down with their professional designer who showed us an incredible selection of Hunter Douglas custom blinds, shades, and shutters. Look, I'm overwhelmed when it comes to home improvement. Not my skill set. I can get into a Twitter battle with the best of them. But if it comes to improving my home design, well, we need the pros. And that is what was provided to us by Guy Rees. My wife got to sit down and ask 1,000 questions, and we went through a design consultant that talked us through everything, helped us find perfect options to enhance the look and functionality of our space. Whether your curtains are clashing or you just want a fresh look, Guy Rees has the solutions. Their designers are the experts, and they can help you with everything from window treatments to full room decor. Here's the best part. They offer a personalized in-home consultation. They'll come to you, so you can get the same expert advice right in your own home. Do yourself a favor. Get started today. Visit GuyRees.com. That's GUIRYS.com. GUIRYS.com. Go see the great people at Guy Rees. You'll be sure to thank me. What do you think of the Chiefs? I was going to say Sheriff's Chiefs report. Would love to hear from you. Seems pretty commonsensical to me, but it's always great to have the data. You let the bad guys out of jail, crime goes up. It's that simple. And Democrats down at the state capitol should learn that. They don't, because they always love criminals more than they love you.
And then my secondary question is, are you willing to pay more taxes in order to keep more of them behind bars?
Good question.
Yeah.
Join the conversation, 303-696-1971. Text us at 720-819-5115. But, Bill, we got to buy everybody lunch first. All right, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Oh, my God, back to hour one. This is Denver's Talk Leader. I love you. News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Great to chat with our friends at the Common Sense Institute of Colorado. If you go to commonsenseinstituteus.org, you can see their latest report, How Reduced Incarceration Has Coincided with Rising Crime. Bill, what's fascinating to me, and I don't want to get your take on this just briefly, it's this kind of perceived blind spot that the Democrats have. Like, I had Ted Trimpa in here, and I talked to Ted about the crime issue. I had Deep in. I had CityCast. I had Patty Calhoun. And they're like, oh, it's not that bad. And I'm like, wow, I don't think people want to go to the city of Denver. So it may not be that bad, but there's sure as heck is a bad perception of it. So what do you think's going on there?
Now, that's the last part you said there about whether or not, it's bad or not, but the perception, from advertising, perception is reality. And so regardless of what the crime rates are, that perception is something that Denver's going to have to overcome. And I believe you are 110% right that the liberals and the Democrats do themselves a disservice by pretending it's not an issue. Now, when I say pretending it's not an issue, I'm using that as a phraseology intended on the individual victims of the crime. And what I'm saying is that we may have a decrease in the number of crime, whatever it is, violent crime, auto crime, whatever it is, just pick whatever one you want to. But it really, really matters to that individual that is the victim. And that leads into the perception. So that's what they have to acknowledge. It's much like, and we can go back to the last election, where the Democrats didn't acknowledge the individual pain inside the economy.
Right.
Now, there were some fundamentals of the economy that were absolutely textbook solid, but the individual consumer pain hurt. And it hurt on a level that in many ways sunk the Democrat candidate. And that's what's going to happen with crime. That the individual criminals, the things you see on Nextdoor, it just needs your neighbor's house or car to get broken into, where now you have a perception of greater crime. And they need to have this space to turn around and say we need to take care of the society. And I think Paul Pazen, former chief of police, was really eloquent in talking about the focus shouldn't be necessarily on the criminal, but more on the impact and effect on society.
Right.
Now, we can have a concern for the criminal, but we can say, but because you have done X, Y, and Z, we are going to remove you from society. And if you can behave better, you can deal with us and we'll help you get that work done. But the most important thing is the removal of society first. That has to be why they did it, what's going on with them has to be B.
I agree. Well, where perception does match reality, Dan Kaplis with Dan Kaplis Law. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everybody involved in the case. Dan Kaplis is the son of a police officer and a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who've been hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplis Law is serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. Here's the phone number, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or hit dankaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS Law.com. We'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. That's it. If you missed any of it, go to 710knus.com. Our first weekend together, Bill, without Jeff Hildebrand here. We miss him.
That was hard today.
The memorial will be November 11th at Cherry Hills Community Church if you want to attend. You're listening to Jeff and Bill.